Jimmy, would you like? Well, I can hear my grandfather clock chiming on the hour now that the recording has started. Jimmy, would you like to take down the flyer, which is so wonderful? Canto is doing such a brilliant job with their flyers. I think this is really wonderful how elegant these are. And I feel a little ominous in that my photo was bigger than the four celebrity speakers today. So that was awfully nice of Canto to do that. Okay, let's see what I'm going to hit the chat. I mean, the share and bring up a little bit of where we're going. Okay, any comments before we begin? Okay, here we go. So, addressing the Caribbean's greatest HR and training challenges. So, I'm so delighted that the CANTO Board of Directors appointed me to chair this committee again after so many years. I had been chairing the Sales and Marketing Committee, but particularly with things like AI and digital transformation addressing in the region, HR and training is more important than ever before as we move forward. I wanted to, as we're kind of doing, waiting for others to join us here, I wanted to introduce our HR and training committee in the terms of reference, because I'm hoping more of you all will send people from your organizations to join. The next slide will show you what an unbelievable group of committee members we have since we started this in February, really. So, of course, we want to build a skilled and future ready Caribbean ICT workforce. And we want to support our CANTO members and the region, really, by strengthening the workforce by implementing HR and training initiatives, sharing best practices, particularly regarding AI digital transformation, talent retention, and skills, hosting learning events, workshops, webinars, and industry focused training, advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion by promoting these areas, which embarrassingly, since I'm in the US, has really been knocked out of the ballpark in terms of just it's not important anymore here in the US, which is horrible in my opinion, but it's still my Caribbean team said, no, we want that in the region. So I'm delighted to hear that. Proactively sharing emerging trends, HR and training policy oversight, and utilize our conferences as a really kind of untapped resource for organizations in the region to do professional development opportunities for their employees by sending them to the CANTO conferences in January and July and other things like that. Now I'll share with you briefly. Might be a little hard to read. Again, we've assembled this team since February. It's quite impressive. Hard to read because it's small, but look, we've got 14 unbelievable people already on the team. You can see their companies in the middle. And so we've got really great representation throughout the region. But again, we're still looking for more. I want to kind of call out Leanne is on the CANTO Secretariat team. She is our resource here. I want to talk to Jimmy and Andrea today are running the show from the CANTO Secretariat. So thank you to them, particularly for Andrea, who heard me all panicky this morning where I get all nervous before something. So she handles it with great calm aplomb while I'm Chicken Little running around all worried. And let's see who else I wanted to call out. Yes, our CANTO Board of Director, that is our support champion for our committee, is Charles Douglas at Cable and Wireless. So that's our team. So our panelists today, John Gomez, CEO of ALIV Bahamas, and one of the new CANTO Board of Directors elected in January, which was wonderful. Curly Prescott, the CEO of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, that we'll refer to from now on as TATT, T-A-T-T. Siobhan James Alexander is congratulations to her, the new CEO of One Communications, formerly known as VIYA in the U.S. Virgin Isles, part of the ATN International family, moving over from the Caymans to take take the role of the former CEO who has retired, Darren Turnquist, Director of People Business Partner at Flow Jamaica, and he's also our newest HR and Training Committee member. And then I, Melissa Harris, am the Chief Learning Officer of Telecom Training Corporation and Caribbean Business Consultants, and have been involved in the Caribbean for the last 20 years and love CANTO and appreciate them putting up with me on the various different projects that we're working on. So with that, I'm going to stop the share. And now we're going to go ahead and get started more on the official business. That was kind of the filler in as we waited for others to join us, because I would rather the late joiners miss what I had to say than what our panel has to say today. Okay, so we're going to start with our first topic for today. Oh yes, I do have that up there. I should share that with you here. Let me just pop that up again to give you an overview. So our agenda today, we're going to have 3 major discussion areas. The region's top human resource and training challenges, focusing on talent retention, digital transformation, and AI and workforce readiness. After we have about a 15-minute discussion on this area, we'll then follow it up with kind of a collaboration summary and best practices for that topic. That'll be about 5 minutes, so about 20 minutes for each of these topics. We'll then jump into our second major topic today, innovative workforce strategies, solutions for managing multi-generational teams, succession planning, leadership development, and then again, summarize that section by the collaboration and best practices, and then skills for the future, our third major topic, upskilling and reskilling. We'll follow that up with questions and answers. Feel free to, as you hear things, today, go ahead and type your questions and answers in the chat. I'll looking forward to Jimmy and Andrea perhaps helping me when we get to the Q&A, making sure I don't miss any of your questions here. So there we go. I'm going to quit sharing now. And great. I guess we're ready here. So I'm just going to let the speakers right now have a brief moment to introduce themselves, even though you've heard their title and company names. Let's see, why don't we go ahead and get started here. John, since I had you on the list first, let's unmute all of our speakers. And John, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Good morning, all. Good morning, Melissa. So first and foremost, I would love to say, Melissa, I need you to introduce me at every time, at every event, right? I mean, the energy that you have and you bring to the table is just amazing, right? But I'm John Gomez. I'm the CEO of ALIV, and I'm excited and happy to be here to participate in this conversation today.
Why don't you say something else about yourself that you're particularly proud of?
I am particularly proud of, what am I particularly, oh, this is a trick question here, huh? I am particularly proud of being able to participate in an event such as this, quite frankly, right? So just to have that call, no, seriously. But what I'm proud of is also in terms of just being able to lead a dynamic team here at the Alive and Cable Bahamas team. So I'm happy and excited and proud to be able to do so.
Well, I have to, yes, I have to admit, you've got an extraordinary team. Several of them have been on my formerly chaired sales and marketing committee, and I was just so impressed with how a gung-ho, let's get it done environment. And also I wanted to thank the CEO of Cable Bahamas,
Yeah.
Franklin Butler,
Yeah.
last year at the CANTO conference in July in Miami. I was looking for the topic I was asked to speak on is how HR leaders should be leading the Caribbean AI transformation. I was having trouble getting examples from operators in the region. Well, it's kind of a long story how I met Franklin. We were sitting next to each other in one of the sessions, and I mentioned it, and he went, "Oh, I went to an HR conference recently. It wasn't in the telecom space. And I was like the only CEO there because it was mostly HR professionals. So basically, he gave me the entire speech that I delivered last July. So I was like, going, wow, for an organization to be focused on AI in the HR space. Last year, I thought was very, very wonderful. And again, I hope John and I got to play kind of in January in Curacao at the annual general meeting for CANTO. And we ended up, I felt like we were in kindergarten running around as he was taking unbelievable pictures of the art throughout on the tour we took. So I said, hopefully you can have an art gallery showing at the July event. So I'll look forward to hopefully seeing some of John's excellent work from photography from Curacao.
Melissa, you're too kind. Thank you ever so much. On to the others.
Okay, wonderful. Well, Curly, how about you?
Hi, good morning, Melissa, and good morning to the attendees and participants in the conference at this time. Um, my name is Curly Prescott, and I'm currently the Chief Executive Officer of the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. I have over 2 decades of leadership experience in technical and general management roles in the sector. I've worked with both regulators and operators across various markets in the region, including Trinidad and Tobago, Curacao, Barbados, and the Windward Islands. I've lived in Grenada in an earlier phase of my career. I currently also serve as the chair of the Spectrum Management Steering Committee of the Caribbean Telecommunications Union. I have a first degree in electrical and computer engineering from UE and a master's degree in telecommunications from the University of Maryland. I am an avid cricket fan. Yes, I'm still an avid cricket fan and soca music lover, and live with my wife and my 2 sons in Central Trinidad.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Siobhan, if you'd like to go next.
Well, after Curly gave all of that, I feel like, oh, okay, let's. Good morning, everyone. I am Siobhan James Alexander, current CEO for One Communications, a USVI. I am an island girl. I'm a Caribbean girl, originally from St. Lucia. I have more than 15 years experience in the telecom sector. So I've gone through a few markets, St. Lucia, St. Vincent, Grenada. Last post was in Cayman and now moved to USVI. So in terms of changes and structure and understanding culture and workforce, I think that's one of the things I'm most proudest about, because teams are how we build success. And if you're not leading people and you're not transforming people, then you do not have a successful company. So it's probably one of the things that I am most passionate about, is about leading people. I am an electrical engineer, so it's a little different that when you're doing engineering and you've probably studied to just look at the machines and become the best friend of the machine, that you become a people person. And so it's probably one of the fun facts about me. Love CrossFit. There must be some balance in your life. So there's always something else that you do. And like Curly, I am a Caribbean girl, so I like soca. So it's just a little bit about me. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy to be part of this panel.
Excellent. And I'm admiring your logo and the shift. I was working with your team in the USVI, your customer service and leadership teams years ago when you changed the name to VIYA. And I was like, is it via? Okay. So I remember going through that name change then. And then when your team told me, oh, Siobhan has moved into the new CEO role, I'm like, oh, that's great. It's like one. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of name changing in the region going on, and in some environments I think this makes perfect sense, and some it's a little confusing. One of the big things I've noticed is that a lot of companies are being created like cable and wireless business, that separate companies are being created just for the business sales environment, which is another huge transition that we had. And I think I did a Canto conversation on that last year on what's transforming, because it's hard to keep upgrading smartphones. We
So I
need new
think
ways.
just, on that point, and it's a good thing that you pointed it out, Melissa, One Communications, we've always operated in 4 markets, but people didn't know us as one company. AT&I is our parent company. We actually operated GTT before, which is now One Communications Guyana, Logic in Cayman, VIA, which was USVI, which is now One, and then One Communications Bermuda. So it makes sense that we know, bring our forces together and actually identify as one. So that's just a quick plug in there.
Yes, because then y'all have Brava and
That's right. The business segment is
CX, and
Brava.
y'all
Yes.
y'all have got a lot of different companies, and so yeah, love the purple. Okay, Darren, you want to wrap us up here?
Well, I'm not a CrossFit person, so I think, Siobhan, you got me on that one. I'm Darren Turnquest. So happy to be here to represent Liberty Caribbean. You talk about rebranding. So I hope by the time we're done, you can definitely feel the rhythm in the house. I'm a former civil servant, so a former bureaucrat, former psychologist turned bureaucrat turned telco professional. I like to say that I work for Liberty Caribbean, who is a company that looks strongly at our employee value proposition just as strongly as we look at our customer value proposition. I think it's so important that we keep our employees at the forefront of everything we do. And so this is exciting for me. Formerly of BTC, just moved to Jamaica. So 6 months ago, I joined my fantastic Jamaica family. And so I could say I'm a hybrid of Bajam, to say the least.
Excellent. Well, yes, you all have another interesting names. Liberty Global, LLA, CWC, BTC, Flow. So lots going on there too. So hope you've enjoyed the move to Jamaica.
For
And
sure.
at this point, we'll go ahead and get started. Do our speakers anything else you want to say before we move from this introduction period into our discussion? You are all so quiet. Okay, let's see if we can get you a little energized here by our first topic, where we'll discuss what you feel are the top HR and training challenges. And by the way, I had a list of about 70 HR professionals in the region that, since I've been working with all of your companies for the last 20 years, I had all these names. So we had like a needs analysis meeting several months ago and asked them what they thought their major needs and challenges were for the region. And so we kind of used their feedback to pull together our topics along with our HR and training committee members. So that's where our focus came from today. So again, the top HR and training challenges addressing talent retention, digital transformation, including AI, and workforce readiness. After you share about, we're already behind, that's always one of my faults here. After we share about 3.5 minutes from each of you on those topics, then we'll summarize your discussion by you sharing your collaboration ideas and best practices. Okay, top HR and training challenges. Who wants to kick off? I don't want to pick on anyone, so somebody needs to volunteer.
Well, I'm always up for it, Melissa.
Good.
Yeah. So I think when we look at where we sit in the region and we really look at it from a Caribbean context, there's only so many people in the Caribbean, right? And when we think about telco, it's very specified in terms of how do you attract the right talent, but not only attracting the right talent, how do you retain that talent? When we look at different markets, we might be competing with one other provider in that market, and you have that one talent. And I'm going to see everybody smile when I talk about BI, right? Everybody's looking for the greatest BI talent. And I think what we do is that you talked about how we started as a department of personnel. Sometimes HR has to transition and really begin to advocate and protect the employee and look at that retention strategy the way any product manager would look at a CVP. And so how do you make sure that you have trusted policies that will be able to guide how we treat our employees, provide the level of flexibility? Curly, you know your family, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Providing that level of flexibility, looking at what we need in our respective communities, right? In terms of the balance. In Liberty Caribbean, we take every aspect of the employee as important. Parental leave. Look at what we do with our parental leave policies, what we give fathers, what we give adoptive parents, what we give mothers in terms of that particular benefit, but also making sure that the level of flexibility that we have for the employee is there. Now, while we have a return to work, push that is going on, we don't forget the human element that individuals have a lot going on. They have kids, they have families. And if you treat your employee right, then your employee is definitely going to treat you right. And then looking at performance and making sure that we see performance not as hammer and hatchet, but we see performance as a part of development and on learning and trying to see that agile performance development tells you that people are not always going to get it right, but they're on a journey towards growth. They're on a journey towards learning and development. And I think that's key. Sometimes from an HR perspective, what we do is we create policies for the 2%. And my boss, Don Bone, always says this: we need to make certain that we manage the 2%, but our policies are those that are affecting to give the 98% of our employees air. And so I think it has to be trusted. I want to hit this next point in terms of retention and recruitment. We have to understand that every generation, for the most part, has to be managed differently. And so you have Gen Zs that are coming in right now that, as my grandmother would say, wouldn't last in your company longer than Patty in the army, right? And they're ones that they will simply cycle through 3 jobs in 1 year. But you have to make certain that your environment is one that attracts them. We always talk from an HR perspective of what the Google office feels like, or what is it to work in Google. And sometimes in the Caribbean, we have this post-colonial approach as to what the workforce and what the environment should look like. I think it means that we need to get out of our heads about what HR and what employee engagement should look like and really take an innovative and creative space. I can say that I work at Liberty Caribbean because it's the best place in the world that I've ever worked. I've never felt more vibrant. I've never had more oxygen than this one place. I mean, this platform, or having the opportunity to be on this platform as a young professional, speaks mountains, and giving those opportunities to other individuals as well. So many people will they said often emulated but never duplicated, right? I think in essence, you have to have the heart of the employee at the center of everything that you do, and everything else will fall into place. So HR needs to change the name from HR, the way we've done it, and making certain that you understand that you're managing people and not paper. So I think when we think about some of the challenge is a mindset of who we should be in terms of how we manage people and what our people and who our people and what our people mean to us.
Wow. Bravo. That was fabulous. I'm ready to come work for you all. That was so inspiring. Thank you very much. Now, I want to turn it over to, I just want to mention, I think it's wonderful you focus on the adoption, families that adopt, and the kids and all that. I don't know if you have a dog policy. I'm adopted. I rescue dogs, and they only like to bark when I'm on a call like this. So if you see me glaring, it's not at a child or grandchild. It is at a dog. Okay.
As one of the market leaders, I'll say let's not say we have a dog policy. We have a heart policy. Know your employee, know their circumstances, know what they value, and you help to value that along with them.
Perfect.
I have 2 dogs, by the way, so I understand that wholeheartedly.
Good for you. And I used to be involved, by the way, in dog rescue. We'd fly the dogs from the U.S. Virgin Isles to the U.S. to be adopted, by the way. Okay. I'll get off dogs. Okay. Curly, he mentioned something about you in his dynamic presentation. What was he referring to? Let's kick it off over to you now.
No, I think he just made up a reference to the fact that I'm family, that I'm a former Liberty Caribbean employee. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. He was just giving me a shout out for that. So yeah, absolutely, very much familiar with a lot of the people policies that Darren and his organization, and his leadership led by Dom, they've rolled out over the years. I was there when they took a leadership role, and one of the things he touched on was the paternity leave policy, where they introduced paternity leave for fathers that would have children. And I would say it's something that has been looked at as a leadership role, as a leadership action, I should say, across the region. And we're even happy to say that even at the Telecom Authority of here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have, been able to, and he made another reference about emulate, not duplicate. We have even emulated in that regard. We have granted additional paternity leave to our young fathers who have been blessed to have new entrants into their families, so that new fathers, it's not a case where you just there at the hospital and you're back to work the following day. You get to support the mother during her recovery time. So while she's recovering, you get to support her, let her get some more sleep while you change some pampers and so on and so forth. But you also get the access to the connection to the newborn baby. And of course, it could be a newborn baby as in delivered, or it could be a newborn baby as in adopted. Right? So both, all scenarios, all of the different models of family, they are supported. So you get to get that connection time with the new entrant into the family. So yeah, fully on board with a lot of what Darren would have spoken about, would have been exposed during my time at Liberty. And as I said, we've been able to emulate and adopt some of the positive things here at the Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. One of the areas I would veer a little bit away from Darren, he talked about, in many markets, there's one or two competitors that they're competing for staff. As a regulator here, we're actually competing with the industry, right? So the operators that we are regulating, they are our competition for talent, right? They are looking at our best resources. So the best resources are the regulator. The operators are looking at them and saying, hey, that would be a great guy to have. So we, and one more to add to that, the operators that are looking at our talent are not restricted to our market. So it's just because we're the Telecom Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, it doesn't mean that only the operators in Trinidad and Tobago are looking at our talent. We are being approached, our talent are being approached and looked at by operators across the wider region. So we do have to ensure that we provide a supportive, engaging environment for our employees to be able to retain our best talent. One of the words that Darren touched on a lot in his presentation was flexibility. So flexibility is key for us. We need to ensure that, that sort of flexibility in terms of the work model, whether hybrid versus, in office, is facilitated so that we do provide that coverage. If an employee needs to take an additional day to take care of his family and so on and so forth, we do provide that flexibility to ensure that the work culture that the employee requires to take care of things at home is there for them. So that's absolutely huge for us. We also look at flexibility in terms of career development. There's not just one way to advance your career. You should have multiple avenues by which you could progress on your career development. And yeah, I mean, I think it's all about ensuring that we enrich the jobs, enrich the career models, invest in staff well-being. That is critical for us. So having a lot of extracurricular type activities. So it's not just about getting the job done and hitting your targets, but creating a lot of opportunities for team building and job enrichment, providing those flexible pathways to career development and flexibility in terms of the work model that employees require in order to fulfill their personal responsibilities. So those would be some of the key points that we have around ensuring we retain our talent.
Excellent. And it does look like work-life balance, emotional wellness are some of the big keys going on all over the world right now. We live in a very stressful environment everywhere. And so thank you. Those were great points. I appreciate that. We'll just go in reverse order. Since John kicked us off, let's go to Siobhan and hear what she has to say.
So I think my co-panelists have pointed out some really good things that we need to address. But there's really an interconnectedness between that talent-driven, the digital transformation part of it and the AI. And, I'll just spend some time on that. I totally agree with Darren when he speaks about it's a people-centered and we manage people. The biggest challenge is that our employees' mindsets are shifting, but our policies aren't necessarily shifting in tandem with that. And so if we're really keen on managing people and understanding where they are, and again, we're managing 5 different generations of people within our workforce, how we speak to them, when we speak to them. The Gen Z, for instance, isn't interested in a paycheck. It's job fulfillment and job enrichment, which becomes top of mind for them. And so, we create these ladders that we think that's where people want to go. And we talk about succession planning, which we'll talk about later. But some of them just want best fit skills to match what they like. And so we start to talk about, a lattice instead of a ladder, because I may have job satisfaction moving laterally into a job that I really want to do versus being a CEO. Some persons don't want to do that. They find job enrichment other places. So, you start to talk about those things, and then you bring in the digital aspect, and we're all in a technology first thrust. But that also is a challenge because if we aren't looking at the other generations and bringing them on that digital literacy and talking about, Darren talks about engagement, but really involvement and engagement are together. And we do a lot of surveys and we do all these fancy things, but if we're not really looking at the feedback, then why are we doing it, right? So we do exit interviews, but how many of us look at our employee surveys as stay interviews to make sure that we're using the things that the voice of the employee is saying to us as actionable items to keep our employees? And so talent retention in a space where we probably have, as Curly pointed out, we're all competing for the same pool of employees and we're all kind of, looking at it. How do we retain talent? It's more expensive to actually acquire than to retain. And so my thing is, when we do these voice and of the employee surveys, really spend some time there. And then we speak about AI and workforce readiness. We're talking about a generation that's coming in that use ChatGPT for everything. And then there's a generation that are absolutely scared of ChatGPT because it's a replacement for. So how do you bring that generation along to say it's an augmented view of a workforce versus, a replacement? So maybe we're taking out the busy work, and my team here helps me say, let's take out the busy work. Let's put that where it can, and let's bring the human aspect into it. So for me, the challenge is a mindset shift, and it's not the employees, it's actually us as leaders to change with the times and address our policies with that to augment it. I think the companies that will win in the space are the companies that can balance between the human and the technology. We're all technologists. We're all very comfortable in that space. So bringing in technology is easy for us. Managing people, and Darren, I think you hit it right. When we stop talking about human resources and we talk about people management, it reminds us that we're managing people. And so we need to spend some time in understanding what job satisfaction truly looks like. And it is not, I offer it's not a paycheck. A lot of the times it's other things. So that's where I see it.
Wow. This has been so phenomenal so far. I'm just so thrilled. I love you talking about voice of the employee. We've done voice of the customer, and I know I was doing a lot of work on customer experience for Guyana Telephone and for y'all via. And we were going, hey, you can't have happy external customers, customer experience, unless you have happy internal customers, employee experience. So a lot of people thought, oh, customer, customer, customer. But again, y'all have just summed it up. We got to take care of our people first, and then they'll take care of the customer. So thank you. John, why don't you wrap up this topic on our top HR and training challenges for the region?
Certainly. So listen, when you go last, there's always the challenge that all of the presenters ahead of you have touched on all of the topics, right? So there are one or two that I do want to talk about actually though. So when here at Cable Bahamas in the Life family, we also talk about the career development in terms of skills-based approach. We use the skills-based approach just to make sure that we understand all of the I don't want to say psyche, but understand how those persons work. We talk about the different generations, the Gen Zs, Gen Ys, and what have you. We need to understand those. And so when you do those surveys and you do those exercises, because as the leaders of the business, we want to make sure that we are putting people in the right place for the right task, right job. Because you have to make sure that those skills that they have are matching not just for the business, but that they can individually be successful in what they are doing and how they are contributing to the overall success of the business as well. The other thing I want to talk about in terms of the engagement, I just want to piggyback on what was said about the engagement as well, because that's something that we do annually. And the feedback is really, this is where you have that voice where people can express themselves. And what we do is we take 2 or 3 learnings or key topics coming out of that survey, and we focus on those for the rest of the year so that we want to ensure that the staff, the team members are actually seeing the changes that are being done based upon what they're saying to us. So it's important for us to listen and to create an environment where people can give that feedback, have their voice be heard, and to make sure that they feel safe in terms of giving that contribution as well. And again, the stay interviews, the exit interviews, they are phenomenal because oftentimes even though we prefer not to wait for the exit, oftentimes people move for different reasons, right? And so opportunities come. The region is very small, and as my fellow panelists have said, when we look across the region and the number of companies we had, people move around the business. So we have to really invest in the training. And so the question is, how much do you invest? If you do not invest, what's worse than having an employee that is not trained to do the job successfully? That's even worse than not investing in them. So I end on that just now, Melissa, to ensure we stay on track with the time here.
Oh, how thoughtful of you. Well, I think it's so demotivating. I knew I grew up, from my former life, I headed up AT&T's national training. And in that environment, we do employee surveys. And no one ever did anything with it. It was so demotivating. So thank you for sharing. Y'all take that feedback seriously and you make a difference. Because once you demotivate an employee, it is really hard to get them passionately involved again. That's wonderful. Okay, let's sum up this section on talking about then what do you see as some collaboration opportunities within the region and beyond to address these top HR and training challenges and some best practices or failures. People love to hear what went wrong and then what we recovered on. So who wants to jump in as we sum up this section? Should we go the same way? Start with Darren?
I'm good with that. I think sometimes we look and Curly, you bring it up correctly, and sometimes we don't like to put the regulator in our head because that always comes with a fine, right? Um, but I think it's high time that we put our competitive aspects to the side and have conversations about people development, because people development is nation development, right? I think there's some things that we're learning when we put all telco together. If we see how many people we employ together in all aspects of our region. And we look at what is the gaps and what are some of the learnings that we found collectively, and how do we try our best to manage that? Because if they're not with us, they're going to be with you. If they're not with you, they're going to be with us. And so how do we take our collective learnings and work together and really begin to share some of the experiences, share some of the things that we're doing? Sometimes we want to upskill our people as well, right? And so whatever it is that we're bringing into the Caribbean, let's think collectively. Can we do some training work together as we begin to, mature our workforce or redevelop our workforce? And I think, Siobhan, you bring up the point about the digital aspects and the AI aspects. I think we've done a lot of talking about AI. We've done a lot of it reminds me of Y2K. Remember, we were getting ready for the rollover, right? And there was a lot of talking about that and very little action. I think that we have to be able to train all our people in preparation for AI, and particularly our boomers. And in some cases, we still think that our boomers represent the majority of our population. And when you really begin to pull the statistics, they might represent 10 to 15%, but we can't leave them behind in the AI conversations again. So how do we have a collective conference or conclave, or how do we use CANTO to begin to change to train and change the perspective of our middle and senior leaders as to how they can bring that information back with training and development opportunities they can really take to, one, increase the work we do digitally, and two, make certain that artificial intelligence is a part of that to inform some of our actions and some of the work we do for our external customers and our internal customers. So I think it goes back to sharing. There's some Chinese walls that we know exist, and sometimes those Chinese walls are unnecessary.
Wonderful. Well, I'll just put a plug in for the CANTO HR and Training Committee. Years ago, we used to, after the annual conference in July, have a 2-day HR and training workshop. Well, back then, again, it didn't have a lot of oomph because back then, this is 15 years ago. So what the CANTO Board of Directors, why they wanted to reactivate the HR and Training Committee was to do kind of what you're saying, do some collaborative training events. So kind of at this point, The CANTO board is considering doing an HR conference in January. I know, by the way, that in the Bahamas, they recently, the Society for Human Resource Management in Bahamas had a one-day HR conference. And so we're seeing a lot of things like that happen in the region to do HR and training and development issues. Yes, I'm glad you mentioned the baby boomers because we keep Generation X and all that. There's still baby boomers there. We got to do succession planning for them as well. Okay, well,
And baby boomers are managing our people, but we don't necessarily manage the development of them because we assume that they have it all. And somebody placed in the chat, part of people managers ensuring you have the right leaders. Many of our leaders sit as baby boomers. How do we sharpen that toolkit to make sure that they are allowing their behaviors to be behaviors of retention rather than behaviors of rejection?
yes, finding what's wrong
Correct.
versus finding what's right. Excellent. Thank you. Curly, how about you?
Excellent points raised by Darren. I mean, I'll try to be brief because I know we have another segment to go on to, but we endorse the concept around, joint training programs. From the regulatory space, we would look at joint regulatory training, but then there's also common topics as well that we can collaborate with the industry on joint training programs. Of course, one of the concerns operators also always express to regulators is that the regulators are not familiar with our business. So I think the joint collaborative training would be a win-win for both sides so that the operators can be assured that the regulators do understand the challenges that they're facing and that we can solve regional issues together or national issues together so that we're working from the same page and trying to address national issues in the interest of both the government perspective, the people, and the operators to ensure we have a sustainable industry. Another area where we see opportunities for collaboration would be exchange programs, where we exchange resources, whether regulated to region, from across sectors, whether from like a regulatory employee work with an operator for some time, or regulators across the region exchange resources. So we could call exchange programs or secondment programs. We see that's another opportunity to help with knowledge building and capacity building. Obviously, where sensitive information exists, there will be a limit into how much those exchange programs can be employed. But certainly where there's not that sensitive information, there are great opportunities for exchange and collaboration and joint understanding. And then we're in the technology space and we talk about AI, the ability to leverage shared digital learning platforms. So where they're shared with content that presents the material that is required for us to immerse ourselves in, I think there are also opportunities there for collaboration in that regard. Thank you.
I think, and the CANTO HR and Training Committee can take that into consideration. I have to admit, I haven't seen many training conferences or other HR conferences that blend the regulatory side with the operator side. So getting us all in the room playing together, I think is a great idea. So thank you, plus your other wonderful ideas. Okay, Siobhan, how about you?
I think both of my co-panelists have pointed good things. I also think that we need to start to consider the collaboration with the educational institutions within our region and how we influence those training programs. So when we always look at it, and Darren, I think you pointed it out, we always go solo and we spend a lot of money trying to build these programs. But in each of our territories, there are universities and colleges that exist, but they probably have a syllabus that don't necessarily fit our needs. And we should be influencing those because it's not just from the generations coming in, to your point, it's also our leaders going back in to retool and reskill and upskill. And so, that influence and that collaboration is not just in the telecom sector, but I think there's cross-sectional benefits when we talk about managing people that needs to happen. So we do need to start to bring in our stakeholders and our partners and influence some of these syllabus so that, they kind of help us within that growth and training programs. I think that's where collaboration really exists.
Excellent point. Okay, we're going to get the regulators, the operators, and the educational institutions all in the same room with all generations. So this will be really an exciting venture. Thank you for that. John, you want to wrap up this topic for us, please?
Yeah, so again, when we talk about collaboration and we look across the region, right, we're all small, small island development states. And the thing is, sometimes we think we are all in it by ourselves in terms of trying to figure things out, but some of us have been in it a bit longer, and having the conversations without sharing the secret sauce that we all have, we can still learn from each other to really just not just from a country perspective, but a regional perspective. And I think for us as a small region, we really need to kind of hone the training, the educational divide that we have to leverage that. We've started some of those conversations in a more technical frame, and we've been using it in terms of some services and products that we've been able to get across some of the entities. But I think from a training perspective, it is so important that we get it right by having that collaboration without, again, like I said, sharing the secret sauce, because we all can learn. There are learnings that we can get and garner from each of the entities. And it's important to have that ability to trust and to be able to garner that information collectively across the region. Thanks.
Excellent. And I think CANTO, for example, has at the January conference had a workshop for the fintech, the financial technology sector. And I'm working with a fintech company in the region who basically I'd done work. The founder of it used to be a head executive at Cable and Wireless. And so I was reaching out to him, and he goes, "Hey, I founded this fintech firm." He says, we're a technology firm. Yes, it's financial technology, but at the same time, it's technology throughout the region. And that's why we talk about ICTs in the region. So I think we can also reach out to other industries within the region and bring them in, because again, they're all struggling with technology issues and training and AI and all that. So we can make a huge difference region-wide in the way we plan and how we can support the region in the future. So thank you. Wonderful feedback. I think we're ready to go into topic 2, which is sharing innovative workforce strategies. What are solutions for managing, and we've already talked a little bit about this, for managing the multi-generational teams, succession planning, particularly as the baby boomers start walking out the door to retirement, and leadership development, which we also mentioned earlier too. So who would like to kick us off for this? I won't pick on anyone.
So which topic go to digital transformation? I'll definitely go. All right.
Okay, go.
Good. So when we talk about digital transformation, I mean, people think about AI, right? And oftentimes when you hear it, it kind of sends shivers down the spine, because people think that with AI, it's going to replace the human resources or the people factor in the business. What it's going to do, I believe, is going to help us to become more efficient and effective at what we do, and to help to remove some of those mundane tasks that we have and that happens. And so we just need, and it kind of ties back into the training as well, in that we need to get the people ready for that transition from a mental perspective, and also in terms of that what they are going to be able to do in terms of it then frees them up to think about to look further down the road in terms of how they can impact the business in terms of what's happening there. One of the big things when you talk about digital transformation also is cybersecurity. We hosted a huge cybersecurity event here. We had speakers come in from across the region and also globally as well, because cybersecurity is so impactful. It's going to impact every part of our business. And so hence, we need to make sure that the team members are trained, are aware in terms of the impact that cybersecurity can have on the business operations. So you need to make sure that everyone is ready so that no one gets left behind. And so it is critical to ensure that the workforce is trained. So that's just kind of setting the framework for the conversation.
Excellent. Great topic. Innovative strategies. I thought I had seen y'all doing a cybersecurity workshop. So fabulous.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I could go. I think, John, you pointed out something that's really relevant, right? And it's I think a lot of what we're talking about is a relearning, and when we bring in cybersecurity, we bring in all of those things. If you just put it out to your employees, it's scary more often than not, right? And how you bring that out to the different generations, again, it's definitely, you need to understand your workforce, understand where they are. And that's when you start to look at skill sets and you start to, and we've done a lot of that across the One Communications team. And I know a lot of my HR partners are actually on this call, and we're looking at succession planning. And we always look at, when we start to look at succession and we start to think of who's next, we normally think of the traditional sense as tenure, and we're looking at who's next in line. I think in this new agile workforce, it has to be about high potential and where that agility lies and where are you going? What do you want to do? And sometimes you're managing people out for the next 5 years, and that's okay too. When you ask that question, you may not want to be in this business, right? So when we start to talk about technology like cybersecurity, and we talk about AI, and we talk about people management, I think in the group somebody asked, what's the link between people management and AI? It is using a tool for where it is important. And some of that data driven that we do as an analytic tool, and when we're looking at, assessment of people, we can use AI. We can do that, put people and then, benchmark, etc. So when you look at succession, we need to look at it more from that landscape versus just looking at tenure and trying to put people in the best role. And so when you start to look at leadership in that mindset as well, when you start to, who's your next leaders, it has to be personalized and it could be tech enabled. And that's where we need to start to acquaint our workforce that technology is a tool and not a replacement. And so the cybersecurity keeps you safe. And so when you see IT pushing all these things that seem very annoying, it's to protect us. And then when you do AI, it isn't just to answer the next question. It really is using it as a tool to understand how we can enable your growth. And so I think in this new era, we need to look at leadership different, because the skill set of leadership is also quite different than what is required. It's very common for us to promote somebody because of their technical ability and forget that 85, 95% of their job is managing people. And if you haven't, you probably have put them in a worse state by promoting them. And so when you look at, and that's why I say that when you look at succession, it has to be a holistic view. It can't just be technical. You can teach technical. You can use AI to actually teach some of those things and replace some of those things. The human aspect and the human-centered aspect of leading people in this has to look at skill set that can't be taught. And I actually feel that there are some skill sets that is innate, and you need to recognize potential and give them a path for growth within the organization. And so, when you look at, again, that generation, what I may want as job satisfaction is totally different. And a lot of, Darren, you said they probably do 3 jobs in the same year. I think our parents would all be like, this is instability. For them, that's stability because they're searching for what's next and how do they really get. And so it all interconnects: retention, succession. It's all that, trying to retain talent. That's why succession becomes a key tool. And for us, we've been looking at succession not as a tick the box of, hey, this is where you go, but more of what do you want to do and where do you see yourself? And it's okay to say that in 5 years, I don't want to be here. That's okay too, right? So I think that's where the mindset has to shift. And that's part of our challenge within the region, at least from our point of view.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next.
I'll go next because I mean, Siobhan, you just have me so excited, right? I think a couple of things you talked about is lattice versus the ladder. We are so busy thinking that people want upward mobility. And when we think about these innovative work strategies, I think Curly, you brought about the idea about, giving people the opportunity to do cross training and letting them see different parts of the business. I think what we have to think in the innovative work strategies, I mean, I used to be a product manager at one point. And so what I apply in HR is the same way I wanted to have an exciting CVP or an exciting buyback or plan. I want to have the same thing for the employee. And I think what we have to determine is that how do we make the experience of the employee based on our innovative strategies to keep them salivating at new opportunities so incredibly exciting for them. So we have this thing called Next Gen Leaders. And what Next Gen Leaders is, it's looking at the base, right? It's looking at that group of middle managers, putting them in spaces, putting them in rooms, having the +1 conversations with them to talk about what do you want? What do you need to learn more of? And Siobhan, you hit the nail on the head because many of them will tell you, I don't know how to manage people. That's my struggle. I know the technical aspects of my job, but you all are asking so much of me now to talk to people and ask people how they're doing and to stop to their homes if somebody passed away. Like, I'm uncomfortable with that aspect of EQ. And so how do you get that EQ development? Talk about another innovative strategy that we do is that we take our graduate program and we take graduates who apply to our business, we put them in rotations, and they go into the business directly in really like kind of a middle management or junior role or kind of quasi junior role. And and you would see that the baby boomer has the support of this new Gen Z that's coming into the business, providing some level of support, asking tough questions, showing them how to work AI, giving a different perspective. And in actuality, in some cases, I've seen them share a different Marcom view. Like, no, that's not what we want as young people. That's not really what this generation want because we assume like nothing for us without us. And then the important is that we have this thing called a talent spot because talent reviews are so incredibly important. And Siobhan, you hit it when you said, do you want to be here? You might be moving people out for the next 5 years, and it might be on their time when they want to move out. But because you have a person that is reviewing talent, ready for promotion, subject matter expert, needs growth and development, you know how to be surgical in your innovative strategy as to this is a buffet from a people standpoint. So they need to choose what they want in order to develop themselves based on the feedback that they would have gotten in their APD session, Agile Performance Development. My coach said to me that I needed this. My manager said that I needed to improve my presentation skills. So I'm going to link in on LinkedIn Learning to get that done. And so it's the innovative strategy is becoming the lattice and not the ladder, because not everybody wants up. People just want air. Showing individuals what are the opportunities for them that's based on their development journey, and allowing them to be able to pull themselves in, to lean into the business and really experience it. I think from a multi-generational team's perspective, it gives air to people, and also it cross-fertilizes all the generations with each other at one table. So think about a tiger team with all the generations represented, with good EQ and IQ sitting at that table. That means greatness for us. From a leadership standpoint, I'll say that every leader that sits at the C-suite must know who their +3 is. And they must themselves be able to ready that +3 through having direct coaching conversations, one-to-ones that's not in the boardroom, but might be at lickety split or, tasty party. It could be any which way, but it has to be a point where people feel seen, loved, respected, appreciated, and a part of the journey. And if that's not the case, then you're going to become a transactional employment opportunity for them, which means in the next 6 months, you're going to spend another $2,500 to $6,000 finding somebody else. You got me excited just now, Sean. I don't know if it made sense, but I have a blush on my cheek because you were hitting some major points there.
Oh, that was perfect. Thank you. Okay, I think we have one more.
Yeah, before I jump in, Darren, what was the name of that place for the conversations? Lickety Spit?
Lickety Split. That's an ice cream. That's an ice cream shop here in I'm in the Bahamas today, right? So
All right. I was just making notes.
yeah. The best pastrami sandwich you could find right there. John, am I telling a lie?
No, you're not. I support you in that. Totally.
Okay, great. Yeah, just to punctuate this particular point around innovative workforce strategies, especially for multi-generational teams. So for us, it creates a challenge for our our leadership and our people management, human resource teams in terms of communication, even communication to the organization now has to has to be more inclusive. All right. So we can't just send out the memo, because the memo was the baby boomer generational style communication, where we send out a memo from CEO to all staff, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those type of communication strategies we do have to evolve. We now have to embrace the nature of communications that the different generations within the organization would look for. The millennials would look hopefully for something more graphic, a little bit more color. The Gen Zs would look for something with some hashtags in it. Hopefully something visual, some video type content that reinforces the message you're trying to send. So, we do have a challenge as organizations to ensure that our communication strategies are far more inclusive. Our training, the means of delivering training, we come back to that word that Darren touched on, flexibility. So we leverage flexible training platforms as well. So again, it's not just one means you can access, training on particular content, but we have to factor in, the different generations that exist within the organization to make that content, that material accessible. You would have those who are happy to go through an internet and go through multiple, files and a table of contents. And then you have a new type who are looking for a bot to put in a AI type prompt in, and it will give you all the information summarized in that sort of way. So these are the challenges, the strategies, and the opportunities from a human resource management perspective that we have to employ to cater for the multi-generational organization.
Excellent. Wow. This has been an extraordinary presentation panel already, and we still have a little bit more. I wanted to share a few years ago, Cable and Wireless wanted to create a program called the Green Shoots, because they wanted to develop high potential candidates and have them grow up. So each country identified three high potential candidates. Usually they were younger, and we developed an 18-month program where we came together every 2 months in a different country, where all the C-level executives were involved and coaching and grooming them. And and I've worked with companies all over the world, but this was one of my favorite projects. It started with, my self-development, and then, customer development. So I had 6 different topics, and we met on the weekends, but we met in a fun, environment. So y'all bought that, by the way, Darren. We may need to talk. It still has relevance if we want to look at it. So, okay, we're going to summarize quick. I know this always happens. I always get so excited. I don't watch the clock. So we've already dealt with some collaboration opportunities and best practices for this topic of innovative workforce strategies. Do you all have anything else you want to share on this topic, best practices or collaboration opportunities, before we move on to our third and final topic?
Let me just add one very, very quick one, 1 minute. Some potential collaboration opportunities in this regard for innovative workforce strategies would be mentorship. I think there's a huge opportunity for mentorship across the region, across industries, across sectors that we could employ. And I think mentorship is a great way in which you can have information sharing happening. Cross-generational understanding happening as well, because the mentor can actually learn from the mentee without compromising, the sensitive, confidential, competitive information that exists. So I believe this is a great opportunity for us, as we continue to look for collaborative opportunities to introduce mentorship across industries and the sector and across the region to help bridge this particular gap of innovative workforce strategies. Thank you.
And one final thing, I don't want the comment that Siobhan made to go on deaf ears. I don't know if CANTO, and it might be too late, but our TVET institutions should be invited to the table to get a fair understanding, if it's a part of the HR committee or the HR session, to get a fair understanding, be relevant to who and what we can employ for. I think that is so, so important. And if not, we can connect them to the individuals who can train the trainers so that they can help and train people for us.
And you're referring to the academic institutions.
Correct, correct. Particularly the technical institutions.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we have to overcome the challenges. Sometimes the attendees to these types of sessions are going, hey, this instructor doesn't get us. They're talking all theory, academics. They really don't understand our world. It's so unique. We're special. So that's another thing, is making sure who's delivering, the strategy has instant credibility and respect.
Because they have to keep up with the technology as well, and the technology is always changing. So how do they train for something that they're unaware of, right?
Great point. Any other comments on this topic of innovative workforce strategies? Okay, last and final topic. Describe skills for the future. Upskilling and reskilling to meet, and we've kind of been alluding to this, upskilling and reskilling to meet the demands of a rapidly changing industry. So, skills for the future. In addition to what we've already mentioned, what other ideas do you have? Who wants to kick us off?
I'm happy to kick off this particular session. So as we look at skills for the future, obviously, the economy, the sectors, the markets are going digital. They're going all digital. So there's and with the adoption of digital, there's a lot more emphasis around data, all right, and the use of data and the responsible use of data, right? So I think, some critical skills that we are looking at as we evolve to more digitally run organizations. We're looking at data literacy. John would have touched earlier on about cybersecurity awareness, because cybersecurity protects that data. We're looking at, obviously, better awareness around cloud and the use of cloud technology and artificial intelligence within organizations. And most importantly, the need for us to manage our communication and reputation as organizations to the wider public. So in this regard, we see those as critical skills in this sector that we need our employees, our resources to be exposed to become skilled upon. And in terms of strategies to do so, obviously, training programs that are geared around that. We also see, the adoption of multidisciplinary work teams across organizations to help the knowledge sharing and appreciation and understanding of how these critical areas affect multiple facets of the organization. And finally, the need for identification of micro-credential programs to basically ensure we keep the key resources within the organization appropriately refreshed in terms of their skills, and to ensure we could leverage these critical components within the organization as efficiently as possible. Thank you.
Perfect. Since you wanted to kick us off, it looks like this is something that's pretty passionate to you. So thank you for starting us off on that. Okay, am I seeing a finger raised from Siobhan there?
Yes, I think Curly, you've pointed out some things that are very dear to me as well, right? When you talk about skills for the future, it's kind of two-pronged. From a technical perspective, you're looking at, digital literacy and AI automation and fluency in there and that. But there's a human side and a human skill set that you're looking at critical thinking. You're looking at emotional intelligence. Darren, you pointed that as one of the skills. Resilience in a pressured world is also a skill that we often put aside, but resilience is necessary because especially in our world and our industry where things are fast-paced, it's how do we equip people to become a little more resilient? And I'm not talking about loading it on and just absorbing it, but it's a skill that's also learned, and it's probably one of the things that we need to just pay attention to. So from a skill set for the future, and we often talk about training, but we talk about training in a finite sense. And I think it has to be a continuous process of learning and a continuity of development in our people. So from a technical side, we're talking about digital literacy and bringing our workforce there, at least from a bare minimum and a baseline. But we're also talking about role-based upskilling. And if we're honest and we're trying to take out that scare from the AI point of view, we're talking about role mobility as well, right? So sometimes we need to retool and reskill where we identify that there are, let's be honest, there are roles with AI that will go away. But how do we retool and reskill for role mobility where we're keeping the workforce, we're keeping our numbers, but it's a different mindset in there. So I think these are the things that when you're talking about skills for the future, and that's why it's so important that TVET needs to come along as well. To enable that, it is that continuous assessment, that skills gap, that learning, that where are we going in the 3 years? And so from a strategic planning perspective, your planning needs to align with your workforce and your training needs to align with that. And a lot of the times when we talk about, let's do cuts, we cut training. In this day and age, it can't be training that's cut because it becomes so fundamental to our future. And so, there's the technical part of it, as I pointed out, that's definitely, but we definitely need to look at the human side of it and that emotional talent, intelligence, creativity, where innovation, when we talk about innovation, it is that tenacity and that to allow that voice to be heard and that you can be creative, you're allowed to be creative, and that it's no longer just do what I say. It is that we're all involved and we're all engaged and we're part of the process. And I think when we're winning is when our team is winning and they feel engaged, right? So that continuity is important in this mindset of skills for the future.
And I think it's Amazon that has the worst failure of the year award. If we've grown up as a kind of a monopoly utility, it's like, everyone's like finding fault, what did you mess up? And instead of like, if we're trying something new, it's not going to work perfectly every time. And therefore, we've got to create an environment where people feel safe to be creative, not thinking they're going to be punished or fired. As long as we learn from it and, have a good strategic plan for it, but knowing with change, it's not going to be perfect the first time. Just like
Melissa, it's called fail fast.
yeah.
And forward, and
And
forward.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called fail fast and forward. Put up your hand. We've done it. It's not working. And it's okay. What have we learned and how do we move forward? So I think I live by that mantra of fail fast, right? And forward, Darren. I'm gonna add that part.
Okay, who's next? Wow.
Yeah, Siobhan, I echo your comment in terms of the emotional intelligence because I mean those are the soft skills, right? Those soft skills. I mean, we are in this age of the industry of technology and what have you, but it's so essential. It's so important to make sure that we have focus on those soft skills as well. And so one of the things we've done here at Cable Bahamas Group of Companies is that all of the leaders in the business, we had them complete a skills matrix just to see exactly where every leader is in the business because we're about creating leaders and not just managers because with a leader you then have those skills to be able to not just understand their segment of the business but understand the why, the how across the entire organization, and by extension why are we doing the things that we are doing. So that was something we completed a couple of months back, and so now our leadership team within the HR group can actually take that information, work with everyone individually, and to make sure that we assign them the right training that will set them up for the best chance of success for the business. And again, ultimately for the success of the business as well. So it's important for us to do that and to focus on that emotional intelligence and also the skills where we are now. Because when we talk about AI, we talk about not just cybersecurity, but AI and this digital transformation, whereby it's happening and it's coming. You still need to get ready. There's a journey that we're on to get to that point. So we need to get the people ready by training and developing as we get to that particular point to be ready for the next phase of not just our business, but across the entire world, quite frankly.
Excellent points. And one thing that we've seen since COVID worldwide, the investment in training for employees has declined significantly. It's like we don't have time, we can't pull them out of the field or whatever. We're starting to see a bit of an uptick, but everybody always talks about, oh, we need training, training, training. But As a training organization, we've seen a huge shift in the last few years, but again, I'm excited about what the future will hold. I think, Darren, are you next?
Yes. So I happen to work with an amazing talent partner, Melissa Sharif. She's based in Barbados. And one thing that she has done in her movements with talent is determining what are those gaps, right? So talk about skills for the future. If there are complaints, if there are discussions in the overall discussion of talent, it's we need to respond in managing for success training. We need to do this, we need to do that. Let's make some tweaks here. Let's add an additional module. And, in Jamaica, Simone and I do some of that work very quickly. But I want to say that there's some other work that was done. And I learned a lesson when I worked in door-to-door. I started off in BTC as head of door-to-door sales and telesales. And after Dorian, our first line of defense was our technicians. And they were in the heart of it. They had to have the EQ and the IQ and everything put together. And sometimes when you speak to technicians, you hear their heart that they feel like back of house, right? In other words, nobody remembers us. We're in the heat. There are things we just don't get. We don't get involved because we don't have our dress up clothes on when we come to work. You hear everything as the people business partner. And one thing I want to say that Liberty Caribbean has made something that's extremely special and almost makes me emotional in what we call our technician career path. Because our technicians are first line of defense. They are our chief retention officers. They are our chief up sales officers. They actually understand the technology and talk about the technology when they're installing. But do they stay as one field service technician, or is there other opportunities for them? And so in this technician career path, it really levels off the technician skill set from an IQ and an EQ standpoint, where you go from entry-level technician straight up to supervising other technicians, or maybe moving into outside plant, maybe moving into mobile. And so what we've done is we have looked at the EQ skills and the training on those EQ skills, and we've looked at the IQ skills and partnered with an agency that does all the training that they would have to pay for on their own. And so you may come to us as an apprentice technician, but you can leave out of Liberty Caribbean with the skills needed to become the director of technology in a business. And when we rolled this out about 2 weeks ago in Jamaica, I saw the eyes of many of these technicians who really in their minds were like, I've been saving up to do this Cisco certification or saving up to do this certification. That one thing, that one skill for the future activity or program has enabled us to retain some of the best technicians. It's been enabled us to level up our technicians at the speed that we need to. It's enabled us to put modules in some of that training. So as technology changes, we can implement that, which means that they not only do it at their own pace, but there are some things that they will also do at our pace. Now, Siobhan, you got me excited again because you talked about role mobility. And so sometimes when we speak to governments or when we speak to individuals, the AI brings about fear, especially sometimes during election seasons all around the Caribbean. I was a former deputy permanent secretary. I understand how this conversation goes. But the role mobility is key. Your total number might be the same, but they might be doing a different function. Let's do another linkage. ENPS has a direct correlation to NPS and vice versa, which means that the individual that started off as your contact center agent, your retail agent, we have this program, and Adriana and her team called Blue Academy, where every month they show how many courses individuals within our retail contact center space, our commercial space, have done on their own to prepare themselves for next roles within our retail and commercial spaces of the organization. Which means that if you are in the organization and you've not taken your own learning into hand outside of what we mandate from you, then you might not last in the organization that long because you would only want to do this job for so long. But you might manage your own self out, because what we are is we're an organization with a growth mindset, and we are a learning organization that continue to push these programs at no cost for employees to develop, either for us, but even if they leave us, they're helping to develop the nation. So I want to say that our Blue Academy is absolutely fantastic. It's run by our learning and development team that's a part of our HR team. which is our people team, and of course, our technician career path, which I'm sure we will have moments to share so much more about that, which takes our first line of defense to develop their EQ skills and their IQ skills. So when they're hot like a 6 in the hot sun and a customer walk up to them with the wrong attitude, they know how to de-escalate. And by the time the day is over, they might gone from a 1P to a 3P because they have that internal skill to be able to get the customer to where we need the customer to be.
Wow, this is all so inspiring. As I'm thinking, looking at the agenda, though, that all four of you have just shared on this topic, right? Okay, wonderful. I just want to mention years ago, when the region was a monopoly environment, and all of a sudden, here comes Digicel and hit Jamaica and everything, got wild. Well, we had the opportunity to work on some, again, I've been in this industry and in training development for multiple decades. We had two companies, Satar and Aruba, and back then it was called BTL, Belize Telemedia. And they wanted to do these company-wide initiatives on we're all ambassadors for Satar, or we're all ambassadors for BTL. And what these were 15 to 25 people in a session. It was company-wide. Every employee went through this experience. And it was cross-generational, cross things. We had technicians, I remember in Satar, technicians walked in and had never met the telesales reps or the customer service reps. And the customer service reps will be going, every day I get cursed out because of blah, blah, blah. And the technician will go, hey, I can fix that in the switch office. Today, boom. There was more cross-pollination. I get chill bumps just talking about it. It was the most unbelievable company-wide team building, and we're all prepared for competition coming in. And we did the same thing in Belize. And I'm talking with, now they're called Digi, talking with them about doing a similar company-wide thing as they focus on the employee experience and the customer experience. So one way to fertilize the organization is to find ways to get the technicians in the room with the salespeople, with the accounting team, with the C-level executives, so that we're all working together. Okay. Wow.
Melissa, I just wanna, sorry, Darren just said something that I think, we've been talking about one side, and we've been talking about leadership and, our role. But Darren, you also pointed out, and I definitely think it's something, there's an accountability on the employee side, right? That they need to also address. So when we provide all these beautiful platforms and we, to give the training, etc., it is that self-starter, self-learning that also is part of that team and that wanting to develop, right? It is a two-pronged approach and a two-sided kind of strategy that really is an enablement for what we want for the future. And so I don't want it to be lost that we can create everything, but it has to be that they feel empowered and engaged enough to care, first of all. And that's when you know your EMPS is important, because if all the tools are there and they're not taking it, then you have a different issue, right? And it is, Melissa, to your point, team building and a cross-pollination of the agencies. Because when you say to me that, I think Curly, you said that, sometimes one person doesn't know the other person and they've worked there for years and you're wondering why. It's because we've created those structures that says you can't speak to the C-suite, but you should, because how do we know what our customers were saying when you're the person that's actually interacting with the customer? And I say all of this because everything that we've discussed today, there are two sides to it. And it has to be a marriage of the two to make it work. And I think when we talk about collaboration, we're talking about collaboration, different entities, different sectors. There's internal collaboration too. That's also necessary. And we need to break some of these silos of departments. And I think, across our group, we've done a lot of trying to bring teams together and ensuring that there's that open door, truly open door policy of having conversations at all levels and making sure that your voice is heard and actioning that voice, right, as well. So I just wanted to put that in as one of the points that we need to just focus on.
Excellent. We're going to let that be kind of summing up because, again, why don't we see in chat, is there someone, Jimmy or Andrea, who can look at chat? Otherwise, what questions do you have? I can start seeing the questions that if you type them in now, I can see them versus going up and look at all of them. Let's see. I know Andrea say, can you highlight the connection between AI and people management? I think we've kind of done that. Let's see. Here's another Andrea. How have you seen organizations successfully implement flexibility, and what challenges should leaders anticipate when in rapidly changing industries? Okay,
I could take that one actually, Melissa.
great.
Yeah, we've gone down the flexibility road for some time, post-COVID, pre-COVID. There have been a lot of flexibility conversations. Sometimes middle management doesn't really make the transition during the same time that policies at the highest level have been made, and that is because, of course, you are serving front facing individuals, serving customers. There's always the challenge that people won't show up, or we have unlimited leave in our business, that they will take too much leave. I think the way you treat people is the way people end up treating you. And sometimes we start to force our policies in the wrong direction, as I said earlier, because we're catering to the 2%. It goes back to management. If we effectively manage those individuals who are the abusers, then you will have less of them in the business to be concerned about, and more people who are appreciative. I was listening to the Bahamas news the other day, and people were going really, really angry and upset about the introduction of paternal leave, and particularly stating that it would be too much of a cost to the business. When we start having those types of conversations, we should really check ourselves, because we're about not only building our respective companies, but we're also about building societies. And when individuals feel good about where they're coming from in a home space, they feel even better when they come to a workspace that provides them the air to be the best version of themselves. Like I said, we should come out of the Department of Personnel mindset, and we should go into the mindset that we need to give people the opportunity to fail forward. And if they fail backwards, then that's another conversation that we can have in our agile performance development discussions. And sometimes people leave on their own because they recognize that they don't have the type of discipline that is required for a company that's so progressive and so upward moving.
Fabulous. Well, I'm looking in chat and we've got all kinds of wonderful questions, and I'm kind of going, I did not ask CANTO if we could go over our time frame. Usually these CANTO conversations are 60 minutes, but I asked for 90 because I knew we'd have a lot to talk about. We still have a lot to talk about, but we will capture these questions from our chat and incorporate them. We are planning at the annual conference in July to have another panel focusing on HR and training. We're thinking about perhaps looking outside the telecom space in the region and get some new input from the region. So that's what we're planning in July. Let me go ahead and share our last screen. I'm assuming that we will have to. Okay, great. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, thank you. So we kind of had an abbreviated Q&A. Usually I was told by the CANTO Secretariat team, we usually don't have a lot of questions, but boy, this group does, because this is everything we've talked about today is so cutting edge and exciting. We will follow up with the slides and the recording after the event. Let's see. Again, I don't know if you have the ability to raise your hand, but hopefully you all will be coming to the annual conference in Bahamas, and hopefully then you'll be involved in the HR and training panel that we'll be having. We will host, as I mentioned, hopefully a 1 or 2 day HR and training conference and a VIP reception. Right now, we're targeting the annual general meeting in January. So more to come on that. By the way, the current CanCon magazine article, which I've got a copy of on this screen, has an article on the power of fractional executives for the Caribbean. One of the questions was, how do we attract talent into the region? Using fractional executives, part-time executives who know the region, is one way that we can supplement specialized needs in the region. So be sure you take a look at the whole CanCon magazine, but particularly you might find this fractional executives article of interest. CANTO has lots of committees. This is a great way, having your teams get involved on the CANTO committees is a great way for them to develop for a professional development from a leadership perspective. They put it on their LinkedIn profile. So this is a kind of an underutilized resource we have region-wide of letting our teams be on these committees, of course, including our new HR and training committee. And by the way, our HR and training committees, we've got so much going on right now for the second and fourth Fridays of the month from 11 to 12 AST. So we hope we're going to see you July 13th through 16th in the Bahamas. At this point, why don't we give a big round of applause for our unbelievable panel here. Thank you all for attending. We appreciate you being here so much, and we'll look forward to hopefully seeing you in the Bahamas. I noticed that Teresa Wankin, the CANTO Secretary General, has been on the call. Teresa, do you want to make a final concluding remark here? She may have dropped off.
Well, I'll make a quick comment, Melissa. Listen, we're hoping to see you all in the Bahamas in July. So it's shaping up to be an exciting event, and the conference is really going to be amazing. So welcome to every one of you who can make it. Please do.
Oh, look, Jimmy's put up.
Hi, I'm sorry about that, you all. Speakers Darren, Melissa, Curly, John, and Soban. My goodness, this was one engaging conversation. I learned so much here. I think in this room we had some really good conversations, and I look forward to continuing these conversations, not only in the webinars, but at CANTO conference as well, and all our different platforms. I just have one favor to ask you all, Melissa. Thanks for inviting me to speak. You might take that back soon, but remember to book your dates. We will be in John Island. We will be in the Bahamas, and then Darren, Curly, we can try out that ice cream spot. What do you think? So all of you
Lickety spot, indeed.
Lickety split.
Yes.
Your sandwich is on me. Your sandwich is on me.
Okay, so I want to urge you to stay tuned with CANTO. Continue to give us your comment. Remember, CANTO is a platform where we do all things digital for the Caribbean. So your voice is needed, your expertise is needed, and keep connected to us. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you all for coming. We'll look forward to seeing you hopefully in July. Appreciate it. Take care. And thank you, CANTO, for letting us have this event today. We appreciate you. I love CANTO. Okay. Thank you all. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Take care, everyone.